Fortis saw a very large move. The others did not, but today Fortis, I think, is flat to slightly lower, and names like Apollo are picking up pace. Mehraboon Irani is now joining us. Mehraboon, great to have you on the program as always. Thanks very much. I mean, what are your observations looking at the screen today, the kind of stocks which are making a move? Market breadth is pretty strong as well. Broader markets looking healthy. Your thoughts?
Well, I couldn't control a smile on my face when the way Anuj put it up to you that do what you want. I want to go up, we will go up. I think that is exactly the state of the market. I think over the last 2, 3, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, in fact, since January, I think we have been discussing, everybody has been talking about a whole lot of negatives in front of us. And the market continues to show a lot of resilience. The dips are being bought into. I was talking to a person whom I know for many years, and I respect his views this morning, and he was stating that why do you say markets have gone up? The reason he is saying that we went to 18,100 somewhere, we came down, and we are still not at that level. So it's the individual stocks which are performing. That's the way he was putting it across. The point is, Prashant, let's accept it, that 100% of the people who are in the market, investors included, and of course the traders are always there, they believe that we all know that the things are not very good. But we would wish to trade in the direction of the market, that as and when the negatives take its toll on the market, we will also shift our stance. But the point which people forget is that there is always a cost involved in that. The market will not give you an opportunity somewhere to exit at the highest of levels. So you have to believe in the fact that if my NAV is growing, the extra appreciation which I have earned despite the challenges in the global environment, I should be ready one fine day to lose a portion of it, be it a substantial portion or part portion of it. So people are continuing to trade, like I mentioned earlier. This is the time where you need to wear the red hat of a trader and not think too much as an investor. There are sectors which I am strictly averse to, like a pharma or IT for that matter. There could be trading opportunities because they come down very sharply, and there are those capital goods space which I like, which seems extremely expensive in terms of valuation. So it's a clear question of a bottom-up approach. Distinctly possible that whatever the Fed does, if it's 100 basis points surprise, negative surprise, I think it is going to take its own toll on the markets, and India at that time could possibly react. But for the time being, I think the party is on, the music is on, and people are enjoying whatever is happening right now in the market while being selective.
Mehraboon, you said that you like the cap goods infrastructure space, I think. So what's your pick from there, if you could name a couple of stocks?
Well, I mentioned in passing that they are expensive. I like the story, certainly like the story. So the ABBs and the Siemens of the world look definitely very expensive. But there are names like maybe a Foseco India or a KSP Pumps. I think even despite the rally with the stocks have seen, they are at sub 30p, which in an economy which is going to show growth over the next 1 to 3 years, I think relatively the stocks look quite attractive. And if one searches a little bit more, possibly there could be some more stocks which could come their way, like maybe a Timken or something, Grindwell Norton or whatever. They're the great names. The problem is only the fact that they have gone up a little bit too sharply, and they're not very cheap. So the story remains very good.
Mehraboon, good afternoon. What about Cairn Homes? How have you read into the news flow, and how would you approach the stock now?
I think this is the second time that Cairn Homes is attracting attention for the wrong reason. And I think whenever such type of things happen, over the years I have seen with my experience in the market that the market somehow doesn't like it. There are some people, minority, who believe that this type of things definitely provides an opportunity, because ultimately a CEO going or a CFO going doesn't change the entire thing. But allow me to state that whenever you have any doubt in the market, in the company, for whatever reason, I think it's better to stay away. So this could be an opportunity, certainly yes, but I don't have the guts to go ahead and buy into it or recommend it.
Okay, don't have the guts to buy and recommend. Do you have the guts to buy or recommend Ambuja or ACC now, Mehraboon, at current levels? Of course, you did maybe 30% lower, but now?
I think they should turn out to be great stories. I think the biggest positive which happened was over the weekend, where the equity infusion of 200 billion by the promoter lends further credence to the fact of the targeted doubling of capacity, including ACC, to around 140 million tons over the next 5 years. While people argue with me, and I also feel that they are not wrong, the valuation based at current capacity of 33 billion tons is certainly looking a little stretched for the time being, at EV/EBITDA of around 23x. But the same looks attractive at EV/EBITDA of around 13x if you build in the targeted expansion to say 100 million tons, if you exclude ACC. I also believe that with the promoter putting in money, there are a whole lot of people who are ready to buy into it. I personally believe, and I continue to state the same thing, that stock, according to me, has decent room to go up further. It will possibly play the challenge of many people stating that it's looking a little bit stretched. The stock could correct, of course, here and there, but I still believe that somewhere the stock could go up at least another 10, 20, 30% higher than the present level, where somewhere what should happen in 2024-25 could get completely discounted in the valuations which the stock could command at that point of time.
Okay. Mehraboon, have you looked at, we had someone yesterday and we were having a, not a very detailed but fairly detailed discussion about defense as a space. Have you looked at any names here in detail? Do you own anything here out of the defense names?
I think the best name over here would be Bharat Electronics Limited. I think despite the fact that the stock has gone up a little bit too sharply for this entire space, I believe, and I have been believing, I'm a believer in this for quite some time right now. This whole space looks very attractive. The point is, Prashant, does this translate into numbers in your profit and loss account in a hurry? The answer is no. Have the stocks gone up too sharply? Answer is yes. Can they correct? Certainly yes. So if somebody has missed out, honestly, it's very difficult to say, okay, go ahead and buy into it just because the story is very good. It is exactly what IT was in January, where the story was very good, but anybody in the market was virtually owning one or two or three IT stocks. The same possibly is now getting applicable to defense. But the point in favor of the defense stocks, most of them are the liquidity in some of the stocks, be it an HAL, even a BEL, I think is relatively lesser, the liquidity, as compared to the most of the IT stocks. So maybe the downside of the correction may not be very sharp, but at this level, I believe that despite the story being good, quite a few of them are looking overstretched as far as valuations go.
Okay, all right. What about the biggest gainer on the Nifty as we speak? Apollo Hospitals. You know, the value unlocking has been taking a lot of time, but the management seems optimistic that things are still on the mend. Now, on a FY25 basis, the stock trades at around 20 times, 19 to around 20 times. Your view on the stock or from the hospital space, or would you go in for an Aster DM, which you're talking about raising some money, valuation-wise a little bit more comfortable, or do you stick with the largest name?
Well, I've not been a great fan of the entire pharma space or even the hospital space. If you ask me, and I remember being asked this question when Apollo Hospital had gone up a little bit too sharply all of a sudden to, I think, if I'm not mistaken, around 5,800, 5,900 rupees. And I'd mentioned that while it's a great company, the point is, at that level, I was not very comfortable because there's not much of money to be made at that valuation. But having corrected to the level to which I thought it should have corrected, around 4,200 level, I feel at the present price, I think there is at least 10 to 15% upside possible in the stock, because if you look at the valuations going ahead, it doesn't look very expensive right now for a brand like Apollo. And both these businesses, 24/7 as well as pharmacy, I think are expected to do relatively better as compared to what numbers were announced over the last 2 or 3 quarters. So I would say I would give it a slight thumbs up as far as the present price of Apollo Hospital goes, stating that I personally believe that could be at least a 10 to 15% appreciation from the present price over the next 1 to 3 months.
Okay, by the way, I just want to highlight, a couple of cement names are surging now. Just look at Heidelberg Cement, intraday chart of that one, it's up 18%. And Gujarat Siddhi is the other one where you're seeing a big move. Just look at that one. Gujarat Siddhi is up about 8%. Mehraboon, if I'm not wrong, I think Heidelberg and Prism Johnson are two stocks in the mid-cap basket that you were betting big on, right?
See, I think, Anuj, if there are a lot of names being discussed, I think virtually everybody on the street is discussing at least 2 or 3 names, and I think more and more names will be discussed as we go ahead. The point is, as far as Ambuja goes, and you had asked me a question earlier on Ambuja, I think the closure of acquisitions at reasonable valuations would be a key factor in the company's growth strategy. As the sector leader, Ultratech, let's not forget, would also bid for whatever is available on the block. Now coming to my observation, I think if you map the plants of ACC and Ambuja both, there is a big gap where ACC and Ambuja both are not present, and that is Central India. Now people are talking of names in Eastern India or Southern India. Why should Ambuja, this is my view, and if I was the management I would think that way, why should you go and buy something at expensive valuations in South India or in Eastern India where the demand is much higher than the supply? Coming to Mr. Adani's statement, I think he said nationwide player. I think clearly there's a big gap if you see in Central India. And in Central India, if you look at certain names, there are names like a Bella Corp, and there is a name like Heidelberg, and there is a name like a Prism Johnson. So if I was their advisor in any way, I would say that these are the names which you should look at. And relatively if you look at, the stocks are cheaper. They have their own problems in the profit and loss account. Their profitability has been quite low. That's a different issue. But this look relatively cheaper than some of the other names which are discussed on the street, which are not in Central India and Eastern India or Southern India, and which look, according to me, extremely stretched in terms of valuations. So I really don't know which names will ultimately come out. But the valuation at which Ambuja will acquire whatever it wishes to acquire, and it could not be one, it could be 3, 4, 5, 6, because the man seems to be in a hurry, because he is saying that I want to raise this capacity by 2030, and you don't go and set up too many greenfield projects at this point. So names will keep on coming out, stocks will keep on going up. There could be a trap in certain stocks, because quite a few stocks are going up very sharply because of expectation that, oh, Mr. Gautam Adani is going to take over, Ambuja will take over. But I think the closure of acquisitions, attractive valuations holds the key for the Adani Group's future as far as cement also goes. So I would not bet on stocks which have gone up too sharply, and I would concentrate on Central India. And the names which you mentioned, yes, I agree that these are the names I would target if I was sitting in that place, because Central India is a space where Ambuja and ACC don't have too much of a presence.
Okay, all right. Stay on with us, Mehraboon. Let's move on then. We have